folks, and welcome to another Saturday morning Samoflange. I'm Matt.
I'm Benjamin.
Whoa!
Oh, you're not alone anymore.
You're back.
I'm not alone.
You're back.
I'm back. Hi. How are you? How are you?
I remember when you walked in the door,
How you going?
pressed your cheeks back, and I said, "There you are, Peter."
Oh, there
You are Peter.
Oh, started off with some good hook references.
Yeah. So you went on a second walkabout.
I went on a second walkabout. This time I learned the broad Aussie accent.
What we thought about calling this one the subtitle to Crocodile.
Whatever the
Hunter
subtitle
2 is.
was, the Crocodile Dundee.
Dundee 2.
Yeah.
And there is no subtitle. It's just
There isn't. It's just Crocodile Dundee 2.
So I thought we'd put another prawn on the Barbie.
Oh, yeah. Ugh, prawns. I don't know why Aussies insist on eating prawns.
They love their prawns.
Yes, prawn and garlic pizza on the
That's
menu.
what you told me. You
everywhere.
tried. When you asked for what's the best one.
I said, give me the best.
And they gave you
brought
prawn.
me this nasty looking pizza.
Now, to be
and they
fair.
knew I was on a date. Like, who brings somebody garlic and prawns?
But that's a good point.
This guy's
that's
a
good
jerk.
Point. That's a good point. But to be honest, you tell Johnny's, bring me your best. It's going to be a sweep the kitchen.
Sweep the kitchen, which is terrific.
Or it's going to be that sweep the swamp, which is more because if you're not from
That's true.
Louisiana, we want to give you the biggest. And I'll be honest, swamp pizza, not really. When you say sweep the swamp and you put that on a pizza, no one outside of Louisiana would ever order that.
Yeah, look up Johnny's Pizza House on the internet and look at the ingredients for the sweep the swamp pizza.
Tell us if it's appetizing.
Tell us if that's appetizing. Even the sweep the kitchen, you always have to say hold the anchovy.
You have to say hold the anchovy.
Yeah.
If you say sweep the kitchen, anchovies come on it
will
unless
ruin
you
your
say.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Just 2 bites. You
That
were like,
is-
oh no, I forgot to cut the anchovies.
No, the moment you open it up and you smell it, you're like, oh no. And
Ruined.
There's no getting rid of it. Because
I don't know anybody who keeps the anchovies on sweep the kitchen. Why is it still the default option?
it is the default.
Are you telling me that
always been.
statistically more people want anchovies than fewer?
I believe, true to my heart, that Johnny himself
Liked anchovies.
was old school. If it has everything, it
then
has
you got
anchovies
everything.
too.
Yeah, okay.
And anchovies on a pizza it's a dated thing,
Yeah.
like people eating canned sardines and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's an old 50s, 60s thing
Just
that
something they've kept.
when Johnny started, he
Look.
had anchovies on his pizza. He
They've
put
gotten
fish
rid of
on
the pizza
everything.
boxes. They've changed everything about it.
Oh my
lately.
gosh, those pizza boxes.
They're terrible.
They're terrible because they don't have any. But did you hear what happened?
No, what do
They
you mean?
lost their
What?
they lost their agreement.
It's a copyright dispute?
No. They lost the contract with the cardboard company that they were working with. Then they want to get a new one, but for right now, they'll just give you a generic box for your pizza that doesn't advertise who is on the box. That's stupid.
It looks
It's
like
free
they went to the dumpster bin behind Walmart and just cut up a bunch of boxes.
Now the thing is, anyone in Louisiana knows what a Johnny's Pizza is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want to see people carrying around your pizza box at the games.
Of course.
At the thing, if you
How
don't,
are
then
you
it's
not?
out of sight, out of mind.
and then you don't see the box. You're like, ooh, I want some of this.
That's free advertising.
Right.
It's free advertising, and the thing is, though, I was told it was temporary, and that was 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. It is not temporary.
That is temporary. In
I
the days
guess
of
they
COVID.
just found cheap, and they just want to stay with cheap and not buy a design box.
Well, look, the good news is that the pizza still works because I just got
Pizza
back
does
from
work.
Australia and it was naturally one of the first meals that I had.
It's
because
what everyone does.
That's what you got to do when
Yeah.
you get back home to the.
if you grew up in Louisiana, that's your thing.
yeah,
that's your jam.
It's an inexorable conclusion that we all have to come to grips with.
True story. Wes from Prince of the Universe used to live in Memphis for a few years.
Yeah.
And whenever he came in, it was on the holidays, of course.
Naturally.
Every day, he said, from 11 to 1, you can catch me at Johnny's on 18th.
No.
I'll just sit by and he every day for lunch.
I didn't
he
realize
had Johnny's
that.
Pizza.
And how very fitting that we had an episode of Saturday Morning Samoflange
at Johnny's Pizza
Right, that's great.
together. So
I like this shiny new equipment you got. You got a new laptop set up and everything since I've been gone.
We did the switch. We finally got all the last
It looks
program
great.
put over before you came.
Is it sexy? Does it feel
It's the
good?
one I
Is
told you about.
is it
Yes,
zippy? Is
it's
it
working
quick?
great. And to be
Nice.
honest, it was just in the right time because the other ones, it's going the way of the buffalo. And it shortly was falling apart at that time. So it was a
Nice.
good carryover. But really nice. Loving the new setup and everything.
Good.
And but I forgot that's the last thing I told you about before you left.
A lot of sponsors with all your deals you're making for
this is brought to you by
YouTube money. Keep clicking those links and commenting and liking and subscribing and all
Smash that like button.
Smash the like button, please.
Hey, share and subscribe.
Actually, I know for a fact that you work very hard for the money.
Sign up for my Patreon.
She works hard for the money. Don't get canceled by YouTube. So.
Anyway, so we go back. This time, you went in at Christmas time, which not many people know is summer.
Correct.
And now
people should know that, but they all forget.
They don't. And so summertime for us in the States.
We're talking about the 50th ranked education system in the country.
We're not really
We don't
high.
realize that it's summertime in Australia.
Canadians can name all 50 states. We cannot name all 9 provinces. Or are there 12? See, I don't even know.
Goodness. It's territories.
Territories. Is it 9 territories?
Don't ask me. I lived in Canada for 2 years.
But there's 9 and we don't know. All right. So anyway, weird because we're mentioning there was a Quebec license plate driving around today.
Really?
Quebec.
Okay.
What?
I mean, Cajuns came from Quebec.
I guess so. We're finding their roots.
Okay.
Anyway, so you go back and now
I went back
a shady haze of winter.
The first time I went for the month of December, which is right in the middle of their summer, so it was 40 degrees every day. And when I say 40 degrees, I mean Celsius, of course, which is about 105 or so. It's actually about 35 every day, 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. So, beautiful warm summer the first time, and then I went back. I had to come back home to finish the film Sea of Madness. So we finished the next film in the Bog Anthology down in Baton Rouge. We had a podcast episode about that.
Yes.
And I asked the director, what is the very, very last day you're going to need me here? Because we still had to, we filmed it all in about 6 days. And then we had to come back and do some of the sound editing and the recording and the ADR, and because we had a lot of windy days. And then we were in the bowels of a World War II ship, so it was always a challenge to get the sound right. So I had to record a few lines, and I said, he said, well, we're booked for the recording studio for these days. I said, sweet. And that's the last thing you're going to need me for, right? And so I booked a plane ticket for about 4 days after that in March. So I got back down there in the middle of March, which is right at the beginning of their autumn. So the heat of summer had just ended the day before I got there. And let me tell you, it was perfect. It was still it was 80 degrees, 85 degrees.
Wonderful.
Gloriously beautiful weather.
Wonderful.
They are down there in long sleeves and jackets.
Look out.
Freezing to death.
Wow.
And I had just left March, or early March in Louisiana. It's still very, very cold.
Yes.
It's very chilly here because spring hasn't quite sprung until the end of March usually.
Yeah.
And so I was there from March, April, and May, and leading into winter at this point.
Gotcha.
So I went from a winter back to fall,
Then
led back into a winter. So that said, it's the first time in my life I've ever missed spring entirely. And let me tell you,
that's true.
I was so ready to get some heat that I knew coming back that it was going to be 100-something degrees when I landed. I was so ready. I just needed to be warm.
I'd be the same. I'd be the exact same.
Be warm.
Yes.
Now, granted, the winter in Australia it's about our coldest autumn day is their coldest winter day. So, some days on Halloween, we talk about Halloween, how we've gone out in sweatsuit. We're dripping sweat and it's really hot. And there's some Halloweens where it's freezing cold.
Yeah.
And you have to put a jacket over your costume and your mom makes you wear it and you're mad about it.
Yeah.
And so, there are some really cold autumn days that we have. That's essentially what their winter is like every day. So it's still annoying enough that you don't want to go outside and do things. You still kind of want to hide inside because it's still cold.
And you are correct because Halloween is a coin flip.
It's a coin flip.
That's going to be the first cold day we have of the year. Or it's going to be a barn burner.
Barn burning, miserable.
And you're going to be miserable.
Time. Yeah, exactly.
Muggy and everything. It can't be pleasant. It cannot. One thing it can't be is pleasant.
And when it is pleasant, it's such a blissful joy. And so I have a few delightful Halloween memories of when it was absolutely perfect for a minute. And then for a minute or two. And then maybe at the end of the night it got hot or cold or something like that.
All right.
Whatever. So it was beautiful. I went for this time 3 months because the Aussie government will only let me stay for 90 days at a time before they kick me out because of my visa. So I stayed for 89 days. And I rented an apartment this time. So last time I was in full tourist mode. I had saved up a lot of money, and so I was at all these Airbnbs. So I was staying right on the harbor, right over Circular Quay,
Awesome.
overlooking the Opera House, overlooking the Sydney Harbor Bridge.
Beautiful.
Looking at all the beautiful postcard stuff, right?
Love it.
So this time I found a suburb of Sydney, which is still on the eastern part of Sydney, because Sydney's a gigantic sprawl. So it's like Los Angeles sprawl. If you want to drive from one end of LA to the other, you've got a few hours you need to plan for, right? Sydney's very similar. If you want to drive from eastern Sydney to western Sydney, you better plan for at least 3-4 hour drive just to get across the city. And the public transit is actually much better there. So you can take the train all the way across the city in half an hour, no problem. And that's actually what most people do. And I'll talk more about the public transit in a second. But I stayed in eastern Sydney still, southeastern Sydney, so towards the water. So it was a really nice neighborhood still. The reason I chose it is because I wasn't going to learn how to drive on the left-hand side of the road, and I didn't want to drive anyway. I don't like driving in America. And so I definitely didn't want to drive in a foreign country with all the signs are backwards, and they've got kangaroos on them, and they've got little squiggly lines on everything, and the signs have guys with hats pointing this way. And I'm like, why? What's he pointing at? Like, none of the signs made sense. None of the street colors make sense. You know how here we have a double yellow line to show that it's a two-way road, right?
Yeah.
There is no yellow in Australia. It's all white. Everything's white. So I'm like, well, where's the yellow? And I didn't know which way to go half the time. I just wouldn't look at the street because it would give me anxiety if I was riding with somebody. It's like, I don't know which way to go. And so I chose an area of the city deliberately where it was walkable, that I found a neighborhood that was within my price range, that I could stay there 3 months. There was a 24-hour gym nearby. There was a grocery store nearby. There was a pharmacist, or what they call a chemist, nearby. There was a doctor's office. Everything you would need.
Right there, right in the
within
vicinity.
a
Perfect spot.
A 10-minute walk. There was a place called the Cannery, which was in a redone industrial building that had been turned into about a dozen different shops, like coffee shops, a bottle shop, which is an alcohol shop. They had all these different. They had a barber shop in there. They had a florist. I mean, everything you can imagine that you would want to go shopping for was in this little industrial complex. They had a massage place upstairs. So, like, it had just about everything that you might want to go regularly shopping for. Mm-hmm. And then all that was just, like I said, within 10 minutes away. And I chose that place specifically for the walkability, but also just to call a place home. Because the goal of this trip was to find out if I wanted to live move to and live in Australia.
And you're seeing all seasons at this point.
Correct. I've seen everything but spring, I guess.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can imagine it's gorgeous. Let me be clear: the weather in Sydney, 95% of the time, is paradise. There's a reason so many people live there. There's a reason it's the most populated city in the country, and it's absolutely terrific. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, it's similar to Los Angeles, but the sun isn't as blistering, and then the people aren't as awful, because everybody in LA wants to be famous, and they want to be movie stars, or they are, and they're terrible people.
Well, I remember they told me everyone wants to be naked and famous. Oh, wait, that was the President of the United States. Never mind, sorry.
The President of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Yes, but Sydney is delightful. The people are great. They're a little snobbish, I've learned. They know that they're in the best city in the country.
The big city.
And they're proud of it.
Like a New Yorker.
Like New Yorkers are very proud of the city, and they kind of have a little bit of disdain.
A little chip on your shoulder,
Yeah,
disdain for the people who aren't like part of the city.
Exactly. Yeah, you live in the city.
Yeah.
Not nearly to the level that New York is. Not even close.
No.
Like, Sydney-siders wouldn't even know how to do something like that or deal with something like that. It's an extremely safe city. There was a random stabbing. Some crazy guy at the mall who the police were aware of, like a crazy person. He went to the mall and he got mad about something. He went out to a car or found a knife and went back into the mall and stabbed like 6 people randomly, and was like stabbing women and children and everything, because it was just crazy. But it was like the most dangerous and most horrible thing that had happened in Sydney for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
6 people got stabbed. I think 1 or 2 people died. And then that was like horrendous. And in this country, I mean, we're shooting up people left and right.
Yeah.
And
that's a Monday here.
And yeah, that's just a Monday afternoon. Like, it's not even the morning, right? And that's the worst thing they've seen in a decade. And then here, I mean, we've got guns going off left and right. violent crime is virtually unheard of in Sydney. So, like, I asked my friends, I said, so is there any place I should avoid in the city when I'm walking home? They're like, they looked at me funny. They said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, is there any dangerous part of the city? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's a big city. There's got to be a dangerous.
And they looked at me again. I don't understand what you're saying right now. Like, they couldn't fathom the
a
question
dangerous part of the city.
Of a dangerous part of the city. And I had to explain to them what New Orleans is like. No, you can't cross
There's certain places,
streets.
yeah.
You know, there's certain sidewalks you can't.
Every big city has its
you would
area.
Think so. Like, we're so used to that, the dangerous part of town.
Even small cities.
Monroe has bad part of town. You know,
Yeah.
all these towns do. The Sydney is 6 million people, and they looked. Everyone I talked to about this, like, they squinted their eyes and they leaned forward and they're like, "What?
Wow.
I don't understand what you mean." Like, no, you're fine. Go home. It was great.
Wow.
So that part alone was so foreign, but so welcome, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And then for me to talk about guns, like, man, or what Matt, that's all they want to talk about. The Uber drivers, man, they all want to talk about Donald Trump, and they all want to talk about guns, and they all
They don't got them.
They don't have anything. They don't have Donald Trump down there. They want to complain about it, but
I know.
They're so enamored with the U.S. political system, and they're so interested in what
They
I have
are.
to think about it. It's
They
incredible.
are.
They're so interested.
They are.
Yeah.
They're in tune with what's happening. And this is the thing. I mean, the U.S. is kind of something that's on everyone's mind.
course.
Everyone knows the elections. Everyone knows our president, our current president. I couldn't name the prime minister to save my life. But the thing is, though, it also shows how kind of ignorant Americans are of the
That's
world
true.
around them, where else everyone else is paying attention to what's going on
Yeah.
in the U.S. The U.S. kind of sets the tone for the world, but
It was amazing.
the U.S. is the Sydney of the world. We don't talk
With our chip on the shoulder.
With our chip on our shoulder.
Yeah. You mess us with us. We got
Yeah.
military and blah, blah, blah. So I went to the comedy store. So the famous comedy stand-up comedy place called the Comedy Store. You know, the brand name. So I
okay.
went to the Comedy Store of Sydney, where a lot of stand-up comics get their start, and saw a great set of comics when I was down there. And the MC, he noticed me because I was sitting right in the front row, and I was casually laid back and having a good time, and he heard my accent, actually, I think, and says, "Oh, we got an American on stage." And he's up on the stage, where are you from, mate? And all this other stuff. And so he's like, "Are you excited for the election?" And I was like, "No!" he was like, "Oh, okay, good grief, not so loud, all right?" And he made comments all night about how loud I was. Like, oh. And then at the end of the night, because we were bantering back and forth the whole night, and at the end of the night, everybody's getting applause. He's bringing out the comics one by one. And let's have a round of applause for a really loud American over here. So I stood up and took a little bow.
That's great. That's great.
It
That's
was
great.
a great time.
That's
But
great.
They asked me about politics, and they asked me about guns and everything else.
not?
And so
Yes.
whatever.
I went to someone's birthday party, and he had a table full of guns. And that's what he wanted to do for his birthday was shoot stuff.
Guns, yeah.
And that was a normal
Yeah.
birthday party.
I had to explain the concept of a gun cabinet to Aussies.
Yeah.
And it's yes, they're very common. I
Gun
have
cabinet.
them. I've had one in my house.
Go to
my entire
Walmart,
life.
you can still buy bullets, I
Right,
think. Yeah. You can. I mean, it's just kind of weird. You know, we have gun stores. Go in there and
Exactly.
get you a gun. Yeah.
And then they turn to me and they say, "But why? Why though?" And I was like, I don't know.
Have you ever fired a gun?
Yeah,
Come
no,
to the U.S.
Of course not. No.
I'll let you fire a gun, then you'll know why.
Which, interestingly enough, that guy who was stabbing people in the mall, security guard stopped him by killing him with a gun.
Oh, imagine that.
Imagine that. So
Imagine that.
We'll just leave it there. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that was a part of the trip, and then so wintertime came, and it was we had the one thing that's interesting about Sydney weather too, to finish off that plot point is Sydney they go through cycles of way too much rain and bushfires, like desert, everything's dry, and then half the city's on fire. So kind of like LA in that regard too.
Gotcha.
But this year was definitely a monsoon type of year because in April, I think they got as much of 2 months worth of rain in 1 week that they normally get in April.
Oh, my.
So it rained every day and rained hard, and not quite to the point of Louisiana style heavy rain, but it got there. It was
Hard
pretty-
Rain, the movie with Christian Slater. Gotcha. That kind of hard rain. That's some hard rain.
That's some hard rain.
When you have an action scene on jacuzzis that happen in a parking lot, that's just,
So yes,
Yeah.
but this was a very wet winter, and I was cold, and I was wet, and I was ready to go home by the end. I truly was. Like my last week there, I will say that I had a stomach bug. I got food poisoning, or I was throwing up. I was in the toilet, or on the toilet, or on front of the toilet for the majority of the few days, my last few days there, and it was partly because one of the joys of Sydney was that I realized at the end of the day that I had breakfast at like a Colombian restaurant in Colombia, South America. So these girls from Bogota, Colombia, had served me brunch, basically.
Yeah, nice.
And it was dishes from there, and they were from there, so they cooked it and served it, and it was their food. And then for lunch, I had Italian food served to me by people from northern Italy, who had very thick, hey, how's it doing, the Benjamin? Good to see you, my friend. And they talk with their hands like a this, and they really had the thick accents. You had to concentrate to understand them. And
I love it.
They would deliver. And his name was Nico, of course.
Of course.
Great. He was great. He could make me something off of the menu every time. Didn't matter. He said, you like that last time? I'm going to make you this at this time. You're going to love it. And he would make up random Italian dishes for me. And he said, this is what do we call it this? And then he would say the Italian name. And I was like, Nico, thank you. So, and I was so grateful and appreciative, and I gave him all kinds of detailed feedback on what I thought about it whenever I would come back the next time. I said, oh, Nico, that mozzarella that you put in that last one just made it. That was so terrific. And he kept making me new stuff because I was giving him feedback on all the stuff that he was doing, because he kind of ran the restaurant, or he was there all the time.
And it's fun for him to do something off the menu that's something different. That's what he's wanted to do.
He's trying stuff out, and he knows I'm giving him detailed feedback, and so he wants to hear it. And so then that was for lunch. I had Italian food made by Italians, which Italian food made by Italians tastes entirely different from anything we've ever called Italian food.
Oh my goodness, you kidding me? It's fresh pasta. It's made that morning.
Absolutely nothing like anything
done
else.
Done out, yeah.
Exactly. Terrific. I mean, it's a whole other genre of culinary design. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So, and then that evening I had Persian food served to me by Persians from Iraq or Syria or wherever they were in that area. And I realized as I was finishing off my what was it? Not a gyro, but that's Greek.
Gyro.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I had my Persian food, and I realized as I finished it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had such a multicultural food day today. But from people, Sydney is so multicultural because there's people there from everywhere, and they're really there living their life. There's like a Chinatown, and there's a lot of towns that have like a Chinatown, right?
Right.
But Sydney has kind of like Chinatown, Vietnam Town, Persian Town. Like it's got a whole little ethnic.
It's like the World Showcase at Disney World.
Yeah. And honestly, I would ask over and over again, and even DoorDash. Like I got on DoorDash at the end because I was tired and sick, and I didn't want to go anywhere, and it was effing cold.
Of course, yeah.
And then DoorDash has a filter button where at the top where you can put like pizza or American food or Thai food or whatever you want. And then it had a button for Australian food. I clicked on Australian food, and like American barbecue came up, and like this store called Burgers and Ribs came up, and I'm like, what? How?
That's Australian.
And then because I would routinely ask, can you give me something that's kind of uniquely Australian? Because I would go try places and do something new. Like I rarely ate the same place twice, right?
Of course, that's how you should be.
That was all. I was just exploring. There was a coffee shop right across the street from my building that was run by Greek guys. His name was Jerry, and I loved going over there. They had great coffee, incredible food, and that was the only place that I would frequent over and over again. To the point where I got to know Jerry pretty well, and when I locked myself out of my apartment, I went over to Jerry's and borrowed his phone before he closed up, and got the lock guys to come and let me back into my apartment.
Awesome.
So,
love it.
Yeah, so you got to make friends somewhere, right?
Got to make friends.
So, where was I? I was talking about all the food, and then, it's so multicultural, and the people that are there from everywhere. But that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, is that Sydney doesn't have its own quote-unquote Australian thing. I'll tell you the biggest thing that I can say that I think Aussies have that I've never seen anywhere else is called aioli. Do you know what aioli is? A-I-O-L-I, I think it's spelled.
Yes.
It's a sauce.
Yeah.
You've probably had it, but let me tell you how prominent it is. Aioli is kind of like mayonnaise with garlic sprinkled in it. So it's like garlicky mayonnaise. Think about the proclivity of ketchup here, or mustard. And actually, I just found out a couple days ago that mayonnaise is the most consumed condiment in America.
Wow.
Mayonnaise. And I personally hate mayonnaise, but
That's odd. I mean, I do enjoy mayonnaise, but I guess more things have mayonnaise
apparently
on it than
it's
we knew.
number one. And in Australia, let me tell you, if you think something should have ketchup, but they don't even have ketchup. They have tomato sauce, which is a joke because it basically just doesn't have sugar in it like ketchup does.
Gotcha.
So ketchup in America
Sugarless.
is tomato sauce with extra sugar. And
Gotcha.
That's ketchup. So no one has ketchup in Australia. There is no ketchup, just tomato sauce. And they have mustard, but not American mustard. You know what American mustard is? It's mustard with sugar in it.
That's hilarious.
So you have to go to the grocery store and find a mustard bottle that actually says American mustard on it. And that's the only stuff that tasted good on my sandwiches.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And so
the regular
mustard is typically Dijon mustard or
mustard or tomato sauce.
Dijon mustard and tomato sauce, which is almost not on anything, but aioli is on everything. I mean everything. They don't miss an opportunity to put aioli on any food.
Wow.
If you order a basket of fries, they're going to give you aioli to dip into it. Yeah.
Wow.
It's so if you like mayonnaise and if you like garlic, go to Australia.
That's the place for you.
That is the place you should live and die. It's unbelievable.
They like garlic, I guess, too.
I love garlic. Yeah.
Yeah, you showed me some pictures.
Yeah, I did.
American peanut butter.
American style peanut butter.
Yeah, I love it. With sugar.
That's it. That's it.
Just add sugar to all these American-made products.
Yeah, exactly. And, because Australia has a sugar import limit on a lot of their food.
Huh.
So they're not allowed legally to put sugar in it. So even Hershey's or Mars bar, candy bars that we know, that they call lollies. We call them, where's the candy bar section of the store? When you're a little kid, you're like, Dad, can I go to a candy bar? It doesn't matter if you're getting candy or not. You're getting a Hershey bar. It's chocolate. It's not a candy bar, but that's what we call it. And but the little kids say, "Mom, can I have a lolly?" They say, and so they've got a sign up in the grocery store that says lollies at the top, and that includes every type of candy.
Every type of candy. I know this because I watched Survivor in Australia, and they have lollies. Open up a bowl. It's a bowl of just candy.
Yeah,
not suckers. I mean, suckers may be included in that,
but they say
there's
lollies.
like
It's
chewy. There's chewy candy and stuff, and they're going, lollies! I'm like, what are we looking at? And my son's like, wait, a lollipop? Where?
Yeah, right.
But it is wild. They're eating chocolate and all this stuff, and it's calling it lollies.
And they don't have nearly as much sugar in it as ours do. So sort of thing. So not
as sweet.
Sugar is the big problem with that kind of thing. So you can find American stores that sell American stuff specifically. It's got a huge price hike on it and things like that.
Sugar tax.
I didn't go, but sugar tax essentially.
Yeah, not needed.
But Australia is extraordinarily. If there's another thing that deterred me, so number one, I will say the two things that deterred me from living there and from coming home, aside from being back on Saturday morning Samoflange, which is one of the reasons
that's the obvious reason.
That's number one that I came back. But two of the reasons that deterred me was, number one, the most expensive city to live in the world as of 2024 is Hong Kong, China. And the second most expensive city in the world to live in is Sydney, Australia. And it's not even close, man. It's very, very, very pricey to live there. At the moment, the U.S. dollar goes quite a long way in Sydney and in Australia in general. So I had a heap of money that converted to even more money, right?
But still,
everything's so expensive that it negated any discount I might have had by using American dollars. So it was just so pricey. And the only thing that really saved me from really being upset about it is I got lucky because I was anyway, that's another story for another time. I won't tell that on the air. So the second thing that deterred me was what was it? Don't be I don't want to know what villainous things just popped into your mind right now.
No, I think I'm putting together the pieces like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy.
The second thing that deterred me is the regulations. So Sydney has about 30 million people in it total. Yep. I mean, I'm sorry, 6 million in Sydney. Australia has about 35 million people, I think, total. The population of Texas alone has more people than the entire country of Australia.
True.
So it's interesting to me that a country with relatively so few people is so extraordinarily regulated. Like anything that could possibly go wrong with any kind of food, medicine, guns, for instance, all the guns that are gone. Now, granted, in a way, that's a good thing they did with the guns because they had one big mass shooting at a beach in Tasmania somewhere, I think. And this guy showed up and blocked everybody in and massacred a bunch of people. And the Aussie government was like, all right, no more guns. And then they bought them all back from everybody, and then you could bring in your guns, and they would give you $500 for a gun.
Right.
And then they essentially got rid of all of them. But that was in the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
And since then, there's been a culture of no one has guns. So in a way, you know what? That worked for them, and it's working great because they don't have violent crime, and that's pretty impressive. However, if we were to try to do that with 350 million people in the United States, we would start another civil war.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that would ever fly with
that.
this many people. It's not possible. And that's why this whole gun argument thing is just, it's not going to happen for a country this big and with this many people. These many crazy people in this country, you're never going to have something like that sweeping change. But if you're in Australia, if one person cuts their finger on a particular type of envelope, then that type of envelope is banned forever. I mean, it's gone. Like, they used to make you, what's the normal size envelope? A4 envelopes?
Yeah.
If that ended up causing too many paper cuts to too many people one year, bam, there go the A4s. Oh, we got a new Aussie type of envelope now, Mike. You can't use A4s anymore. That's too dangerous. And it's just absurd.
Not living on the edge.
No.
No.
They're so ultra protective of themselves, and they regulate everything. So, there's a rule for everything. And Aussies are conditioned to obey them very, very strictly. They are very much, this is the rule, and I follow the law, and this is how we do it. And if they don't, they have extraordinarily strict penalties for it, too, financial and otherwise. And I was like, wow, you guys are just being told what to do left, right, and center. And that's an inherently un-American thing.
It is.
Don't tell us what to do.
Totalitarian government there.
Yes.
Yeah, very authoritarian.
Socialist. It's a very socialist government.
Yeah.
And that's okay. They're okay with it. They want to be more socialist. They like it. And they pay a lot more taxes. But look, I think their parks are beautiful. They're clean. Everything works. Like, they have a great society down there. However, it's extraordinarily regulated. Yeah. And I think as the country continues to grow and population continues to get bigger and bigger, and the coasts continue to fill up, they may have more problems with that kind of thing in the future as they get more and more people.
Speaking of regulated, I'm regulated to just go a little bit over 30 minutes, so we'll stop this one.
Pause.
And come back. Put pause.
Put a pin in it, Ocean.
And put another prawn on the Barbie.
Ah, no.
And we'll see you next time on
another Saturday
morning
Samoflange.